5 fantastic reasons to train for climbing outdoors. Here are stories from pros like Alex Honnold, Hazel Findlay, Ernest Hemingway, and others, plus one tip from Chris Sharma on how to try harder.
My name is Jono, and I'm a longtime amateur climber, sharing the lessons as I learn how to improve at this sport. You get the sense that climbing on real rock is going to help you out, but it's a pain to get there, and I get that. The thing is, you get better at this sport by climbing as often as possible, ideally on real rock. The first reason to train outside comes from Alex Honnold, and it's this: the secret of climbing movement. Alex Honnold was asked what advice he'd offer to a new climber, and he said, it depends. But then he actually got very specific. Here's what he said. While you can build up muscle relatively quickly, the tendons in your hands won't be able to catch up, and you'll quickly end up injuring yourself. Rather than focus on increasing strength, Alex Honnold said you should practice the climbing movement, and that's everything from footwork to how to balance your body weight over your feet to how to rest on a route. And the most pure version of that happens climbing outside, where you're putting your feet on footholds, you're experiencing the texture of a rock, and you're grabbing features that occur in nature. Lynn Hill, the legendary climber that broke tons of records, calls this the moving meditation of climbing that's kept her engaged in the sport for over 47 years. Build up the skills of climbing movement by training outside, and you learn all the little details that add up to being able to climb on real rock. The next reason explains how to try harder. Number 2, the intensive effort recipe. Chris Sharma has pushed the grade a bunch of times in climbing, most recently climbing 515C at the age of 41. And he said for that climb, 90% of his training was done outside. He grunts, he shouts, he cuts his feet and stays on, which is when his feet slip off the holds, and he just really goes for it. More difficult moves require more intensive effort, and that can mean pulling on small holds, or it might mean keeping your feet under you on a steep overhang. That's different from extensive effort, which is about persevering for a long time, which might mean minutes on a route, or it could be hours if you're doing a different style of climbing. There's a good story from The Climb on HBO where Chris Sharma really embodies this level of motivation. He calls out an Italian climber because he gives up in the middle of a route and jumps off a deep water solo. Chris Sharma says to him, "I lost a lot of respect for you. If you have the chance to ascend, you have to go for it." I don't know where my sport draws went. Here's the combination that I've seen work the best. It's about having the killer drive and full ownership. Chris Sharma shows the importance of having that drive, but what about ownership? That's when you don't take anything for granted and you do whatever you can to ensure success. An example from Adam Andra is during an onside attempt when he said, "I think I have about a 5% chance of sending this." He didn't pretend like the climb was in the bag until he was at the top of it, and he managed to send. Climbing outside fuels that drive and gives you the energy to try a little bit harder. Plus, it's way less embarrassing to yell when you're outside. In the quest to try harder, we need to be able to focus, and that's where the next reason comes in. Number 3. Vastness exposure therapy. One of the best places to restore your attention span is in nature, and when you go experience the awe of nature, it resets your brain and allows you to focus better. You can use that renewing attention to work on getting better and improving at climbing. It's a lot easier to stay focused when you're at a crag rather than when you're in a gym with all the distractions of city stuff and whatever else might be around you. Pro climber Hazel Findlay explained that for her first 9A or 515A, she picked a beautiful line in a scenic location in Sierrana. That way she was inspired to keep going back and project and work the route. On the other furthest extreme, I've climbed a few times at a crag outside of Philadelphia where you're next to train tracks and there's graffiti on the rocks, but because you walk down a dirt path to get there, it feels like nature and it is really relaxing. When you get outside, you make sure to maximize your chance of focusing, but how do you ensure the results are long-lasting? That gets us to our next reason. You see him out? The fourth reason is the concentrated study effect. It's obvious that climbing skill and technique is a crucial part of performing well. You've all seen the really muscular guy at the gym who can't get up an overhanging route, while a really stick-thin kid can make the moves because he's got the technique figured out. Now here's the parallel between improving at climbing and learning a foreign language. Say you wanted to study French, maybe for an upcoming trip to Seyouz. Would it be better to study 2 hours a week for a year, or should you do a concentrated study of 20 hours a week for a month? Surprisingly, recent research has found that concentrated study is more effective in language programs, for instance, the ones that are a month-long intensive course. Now, this goes against a lot of the older research that spaced repetition is really important for getting long-term memory deep into your brain. They found it's better for long-term memory if you see something or a new vocab word right as you begin to forget it. There are a couple reasons why this might be the case. The concentrated classes are full of more motivated students. If you show up for a 30-day intensive French or Russian or German or Icelandic class, you're pretty motivated. But the second reason could actually be spaced repetition is too difficult and boring. And both of these translate to climbing. The people that drive all the way to a crag and haul their gear up to the base of the rock face are definitely motivated to climb. And when you're climbing regularly, you keep your familiarity with the rock fresh. You don't want to forget what a foothold feels like or what a tiny pinch is like when you grab it in your hand. The pro climber Jonathan Siegrist sees a direct correlation between the number of days per week he spends climbing outside and how comfortable he feels when he gets to an area to do his project. Give me 1 second. Now, most of the advice you hear is from pro climbers or semi-pro climbers who climb multiple days a week outside. My goal is to just get outside 1 day per month, and that's a far cry from my 20s where I climbed every weekend outside if I could. But you got to start somewhere. When you make sure you get outside frequently enough, you ensure you'll learn the language of climbing. The next reason is the best one in my opinion and a great rule of thumb when planning. The fifth reason is the Alfresco effect. This comes from Dave McLeod, whose advice is always skip a training day if you can climb outside. And the reason is climbing outside is fun. It reminds you of what you're doing when you're training inside, or you're stuck through the winter, or for whatever reason you have to do those sessions that you don't want to do in a gym. Another good line from Dave McLeod is this: if it was easy, it wouldn't be hard. Tommy Caldwell loves climbing outside, and he gets in as many days as he can, but he lives in Colorado, where the winters can be very wintry. So he goes on big trail runs and mountain bike climbs, and then gets back home and trains in his garage. It can be a challenge to get outside, but we get in the days we can, and make sure to remind ourselves that it's really fun. Dave McLeod recently did an interesting experiment where he ate only McDonald's hamburgers for 2 months, but he also did most of his climbing training outside and totally skipped hangboarding. And the end result was that, yes, he lost some weight, but he also managed to increase his hangboard strength, and he was able to add more weight while hangboarding than he had lost, proof that he had gotten stronger fingers. He says most of that just came from climbing outside consistently for over a month. Some bonus advice from Peter Croft is to listen to your body and go where the psych is. If you're really inspired to try hard lines inside, go for it. But if you have that enthusiasm to go climb hard stuff outside and it looks fun, you'll find that you tap into an extra reservoir of energy and you're able to give 110%. In the timeless words of Ernest Hemingway, there are only 3 sports: bullfighting, motor racing, and mountaineering. All the rest are merely games. You can decide for yourself how to train, but remember the words of Ernest Hemingway, and indoor climbing was not on his list.
Let me know which of these reasons was your favorite. I had a good time climbing outside today. I was reminded of a few things, like it's hard to spot the feet, and you need to figure out how to grab the holds right. But also then when it's hot, it's really hot.
And subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.